The surgery was over. The doctor smiled, said the word successful. My daughter was asleep, monitors steady, room quiet. Then the janitor stopped mopping. He leaned close, so close I smelled bleach on his breath, and he whispered just 3 words, "Don't trust the doctor." I laughed, out of fear, out of confusion. But then he slipped something into my hand and said, "Check the chart before midnight." Then he walked away, like he'd never existed. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. You never know whose story might help you next. My name is Daniel Cross. I'm 62 years old and I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I've trusted hospitals my whole life, trusted doctors, trusted white coats and calm voices. But the night my daughter went into surgery, a janitor with tired eyes made me question everything. And what I discovered afterward nearly cost my daughter her life. Hospitals have their own sense of time. Minutes stretch, hours collapse. You can sit in the same plastic chair and somehow feel older by the second. My daughter lay unconscious behind a sliding glass door, tubes taped to her arms, machines breathing for her in soft mechanical sighs. Emily, 32 years old, strong, independent, the kind of woman who apologizes for being sick. The surgery was supposed to be routine. Gallbladder, low risk, in and out, the surgeon said. That surgeon was Dr. Marcus Hale, tall, perfect posture, voice calm enough to slow a racing heart. When he came out of the operating room, he removed his mask and smiled. "Everything went very well," he said. "No complications, she's resting now." I felt my knees weaken with relief. I thanked him, shook his hand, told him I was grateful. He nodded once, already moving on to the next family, the next reassurance. That should have been the end of it. But hospitals don't end stories that easily. I stayed by Emily's bedside, watching the monitor rise and fall, counting breaths, listening to the soft beep that meant she was still here. Every parent knows this feeling, the irrational fear that if you look away too long, something will go wrong. I didn't sleep. Around 9:40 p.m., a janitor came into the room, middle-aged, gray hair, uniform faded from hundreds of washes. He moved slowly, carefully, like he was trying not to exist. He wiped the floor, emptied the trash, never looked at me. I barely noticed him until he stopped. The mop froze mid-swipe. He glanced at the door, then at the hallway, then at Emily. And then he lined toward me, not close enough to be obvious, close enough to be intentional. "Don't trust the doctor," he whispered. My first reaction was disbelief. I almost laughed. "Excuse me," I said quietly. He didn't answer. Instead, he slipped something into my hand, a folded piece of paper. Murmured, "Check the chart before midnight." Then he straightened up, pushed the mop bucket out, and disappeared down the hall. I sat there frozen. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it over the machines. Don't trust the doctor. It made no sense. Why would a janitor know anything about a surgeon? Why risk his job saying something like that? I unfolded the paper. 3 words written in shaky handwriting. Room 312B, that was Emily's room. My skin prickled. I looked toward the door. Half expected the janitor to be standing there watching me. He was. The hallway was empty. I tried to reason with myself. Hospitals attract rumors, stress, unstable people. Maybe the janitor was confused. Maybe he meant a different doctor. Maybe he was trying to scare me. I crumpled the paper, and then I noticed something. Emily's monitor flickered, just for a second. The heart rate dipped, then stabilized. A nurse passed by. I stopped her. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She glanced at the screen, smiled. "Perfectly normal after anesthesia," she said. "Doctor ordered a medication adjustment. She'll be fine." Doctor ordered. My stomach tightened. "Which doctor?" I asked. She looked at me oddly. "Dr. Hale, of course." She adjusted a drip, checked Emily's wristband, and left. I stared at the IV line, the clear liquid dripping steadily into my daughter's veins. I had no medical training, but I had raised a child, and you don't ignore a warning about your child. Not even a strange one. Just before midnight, I walked to the nurse's station. Charts were stacked behind the desk. Screens glowed softly. 2 nurses were laughing quietly, sharing a phone video. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I said. "I'd like to review my daughter's chart." One nurse frowned. "Why, I'm her father," I said, and I was told. I stopped myself. "Told what?" she asked. "That I could," I finished weakly. She hesitated, then sighed. "Room 312B, she asked. "Yes." She pulled the chart, set it on the counter. "Don't remove anything," she said. And don't touch the orders. I nodded quickly. My hands shook as I opened it. Vitals, blood work, surgical notes, everything looked normal. Then I saw it. A handwritten order added post-op. Medication, lidoxamine IV double dosage. My heart skipped. I'd heard that name before, years ago, when my wife was hospitalized. Lidoxamine wasn't for pain. It was a powerful sedative, used carefully, rarely, and never doubled without cause. I flipped the page. There was no documented reason, no complication, no note explaining the increase, just a signature. M. Hale. I felt cold, ice cold. I closed the chart. My mind raced. Why double the dose? Why without explanation? And then I remembered the janitor's words. Check the chart before midnight. I turned back to the nurse's station. Can I ask something? I said, forcing calm. The nurse looked up. Is lidoxamine normally increased after gallbladder surgery? I asked. She paused just a fraction of a second, then said, sometimes. Sometimes. That word hung in the air. And is it normal not to document why? I pressed. She frowned. I'd have to ask the doctor. Please do, I said. Now, she picked up the phone, dialed, waited. Her expression changed as she listened. Yes, I see, okay. She hung up. He said it's fine, she said. You're worrying too much. I looked past her down the hallway and saw the janitor again, standing at the far end, watching. When our eyes met, he slowly shook his head. No, a cold certainty settled in my chest. Something was wrong. I walked back to Emily's room. The drip continued, steady, relentless. I reached for the call button, then hesitated. If I was wrong, I'd look like a paranoid old man. If I was right, I looked at my daughter's face, pale, peaceful, too still. I pressed the button. A nurse came in. Yes, she asked. I want the IV paused, I said. She blinked. Sir, I can't do that without an order. I'm telling you to, I said. Right now, she stiffened. I need to call security. Do it, I said. She turned toward the door, and that's when Emily's monitor let out a long, sharp tone. Her heart rate dropped, fast, too fast. The nurse rushed to her side. Call a code, she shouted. People flooded in. Alarms blared, and in the chaos, I saw Dr. Hale enter the room, calm, controlled. He looked at the monitor, then at the IV, then at me, and for just 1 second his mask slipped. Not fear, not surprise, annoyance, as if something had gone off schedule. He leaned close to me and said quietly, "You shouldn't have touched anything." And in that moment, I knew the janitor was right, and I knew this wasn't a mistake. The room exploded into motion. Nurses rushed in. Someone shouted numbers. Another voice yelled, "Push Epi." I was shoved back against the wall, my shoulder slamming into cold tile, my eyes locked on Emily's face. Her skin had gone gray, not pale, gray. Dr. Hale moved fast, hands precise, voice calm enough to sound rehearsed. Sedation reaction, he said loudly. Reduced dosage, start reversal. Reversal, my heart pounded. If this was routine, why wasn't it documented? I watched him closely. Too closely, he never looked surprised, never hesitated. It was like he expected this moment. Emily's heart rate stabilized slowly, dragging itself back from the edge. The alarms quieted, the room exhaled, but I didn't, because when Dr. Hale turned away from the bed, he looked straight at me and smiled, not reassuring, warning. They moved Emily to ICU. More machines, more wires, less explanation. A nurse guided me into the hallway. She's stable, she said quickly. But we need to monitor her closely. Because of the medication, I asked. She hesitated. I don't have all the details, she said and hurried away. I stood there alone, hands shaking, mind racing. I replayed the moment over and over, the double dose, the lack of documentation, the janitor's warning, and Dr. Hale's eyes. I needed answers, not reassurance. I found the janitor near the service elevator. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes tired but alert. He didn't look surprised to see me. You checked the chart, he said quietly. Yes, I said. Why? He glanced around, then gestured for me to follow. We walked past linen carts through a narrow corridor that smelled of disinfectant and old coffee. He stopped near a locked supply door. My name's Frank, he said. I've worked here 17 years. I waited. I used to be a medic, he continued. Before my back gave out, before I took this job, that made my chest tighten. You knew what you were looking at, I said. He nodded. I clean the ICU every night, he said. I see charts, I see orders. He lowered his voice. And I see patterns. What kind of patterns? I asked. Frank swallowed. Patients who get better then suddenly don't, he said. Complications that don't match their surgery. Families told it was just bad luck. My pulse thudded. How many? I asked. 4, he said. In the last year, 4. And Dr. Hale? I asked. Frank didn't answer immediately. He just nodded. My stomach dropped. Why hasn't anyone reported this? I asked. Frank's jaw tightened. They tried, he said. One nurse did. I leaned closer. What happened to her? She was transferred, he said, then fired for documentation errors. I felt sick. And the others? I asked. Frank shook his head. They keep quiet, he said. This hospital protects its surgeons. A sound echoed down the hall, footsteps. Frank straightened instantly. Listen to me, he whispered. If you want to protect your daughter, you need proof, not suspicion. How? I asked. He slipped something into my hand, a small flash drive. Medication logs, he said. Archived ones, I copied them. My heart raced. This could cost you your job, I said. He met my eyes. I already lost my sleep, he said. I'm not losing my conscience, too. I waited until early morning. Emily lay unconscious in ICU, her breathing shallow but steady. I sat beside her, holding her hand, feeling the slight warmth in her fingers. I'm here, I whispered. I won't let them hurt you. At 6:30 a.m., Dr. Hale entered the unit. Fresh coat, fresh smile. Good morning, he said. She had a rough night, but she's stable now. What caused the reaction? I asked. He didn't miss a beat. Rare sensitivity, he said. Unpredictable. Then why wasn't it documented? I asked. The air shifted. His smile thinned. Mr. Cross, he said gently, you're under a lot of stress. He leaned closer. I'd advise you to get some rest and let us do our jobs. Threat wrapped in kindness. I nodded slowly, but inside something hardened. That afternoon, I left the hospital briefly, just long enough. I went to a public library, plugged the flash drive into a computer. My hands shook. Files opened. Names, dates, dosages. My blood ran cold. 4 patients, different surgeries. Different diagnoses. Same pattern. Post-op sedation increased. No documented reason. Complications within hours and one signature. M. Hale, this wasn't negligence. It was deliberate. I printed everything, every page. Then I saw something worse. One of the patients, Emily Cross, her name already added to a folder. Timestamped for later that night. Planned. My chest tightened painfully. I rushed back to the hospital. Security stopped me at the entrance. Dr. Hale requested you not enter ICU, the guard said. What? I snapped. She's my daughter. Doctor's orders, he said apologetically. Panic surged. I pushed past him. Sir, I ran down the hall, past nurses, past carts. I burst into Emily's room. Dr. Hale stood beside her bed, syringe in hand. He turned slowly, his face calm. Mr. Cross, he said, you shouldn't be here. What are you doing? I shouted. He glanced at the syringe. Adjusting her medication, he said. I saw the label, lidoxamine, again, double dose. You're not touching her, I said, stepping forward. He sighed. This is becoming inconvenient, he said quietly. Inconvenient, I shouted. You almost killed her. His eyes hardened. You don't understand, he said. This hospital needs funding, trials, outcomes. I froze. You're experimenting, I whispered. He didn't deny it. Progress requires data, he said, and consent slows things down. My hands clenched. You're a monster, I said. He smiled faintly. And you're trespassing. Alarms sounded. Security rushed in. Dr. Hale stepped back, hands raised. He's unstable, Hale said calmly. Remove him. As they grabbed me, I locked eyes with Emily. Her eyelids fluttered. She was waking up. I shouted her name. Emily, she murmured faintly. And as I was dragged from the room, Dr. Hale leaned close to my ear and whispered, she won't remember any of this. Then he added, you won't live long enough to prove it. They dragged me into the hallway like I was the criminal, hands gripping my arms, shoes scraping tile, nurses staring but saying nothing. I shouted Emily's name until my throat burned. Dr. Hale stood calmly in the doorway of the ICU, watching me go. He didn't look angry. He looked finished, like a man closing a file. Security shoved me into a small consultation room and locked the door. Sit, one of them said. I didn't. I paced. My hands shook uncontrollably, my mind racing faster than my legs ever could. Emily was awake. I saw it. Her eyes fluttered, her lips moved, and Hale was still there. That meant time mattered. Minutes, seconds. The door opened. A hospital administrator stepped in, slick hair, soft voice, practiced sympathy. "Mr. Cross," he said, "we understand you're under emotional distress. Let me see my daughter," I snapped. He sighed. "That's not possible right now." "Why?" I demanded. "Because Dr. Hale believes your presence is causing agitation." I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "He almost killed her," I said, "and you know it." The administrator's expression barely shifted. "These are serious accusations," he said. "You don't have evidence." I reached into my jacket and slammed the stack of printed papers onto the table. "I do now." He froze, just for a second, long enough. Medication logs, patient names, dosages, signatures. He scanned the pages quickly. His mouth went dry. "Where did you get these?" he asked. "That doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that my daughter is next." Silence. The administrator slowly set the papers down. "Mr. Cross," he said carefully, "you don't understand how dangerous this is." "For who?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood. "I'm going to step out," he said. "Please remain calm." The door locked again. My pulse thundered. They weren't calling police. They weren't calling oversight. They were calling legal. Cover-up mode. I slammed my fist against the door. "Let me see my daughter." No response. I pulled out my phone, one bar of signal. I dialed 911. It rang once, twice, then no connection. The hospital had dead zones. Of course it did. I slid down the wall, my back cold against tile, and closed my eyes. Emily's face flashed in my mind, little girl riding a bike, teenager slamming doors, adult woman laughing in my kitchen. I whispered, "Hold on." The door opened again. Frank. The janitor, his face pale. "They're moving her," he whispered urgently. My heart slammed. "Where?" I asked. "Private recovery wing," he said. "Restricted access, no cameras." My blood went cold. "That's where they finish it," I said. Frank nodded. "You need to act now," he said. He handed me a badge. "Nurse access." "Stolen. If they catch me," he started. "I know," I said. "Thank you." He unlocked the door. We moved fast, through service halls, back stairwells, elevators marked staff only. My heart hammered in my ears. We reached the wing. 2 security guards stood outside. Frank didn't slow. "Urgent transfer," he barked. "Doctor's orders." One guard hesitated. The other waved us through. Inside, the lights were dimmer, quieter. Emily lay on a bed at the end of the hall. Dr. Hale stood beside her again. Syringe ready, my vision tunneled. "Stop," I shouted. Everything froze. Hale turned. Annoyance flickered across his face. "You're making this worse," he said. I rushed forward. Security lunged. Frank blocked one. The other grabbed my arm. I swung blindly, connected with something solid. The guard stumbled. I reached Emily's bed. She was awake, groggy, eyes unfocused. "Dad," she whispered. "I'm here," I said desperately. "I've got you." Dr. Hale raised the syringe. "Step away," he said coldly. "You touch her and I swear," I started. He smiled. "You won't do anything," he said, "because no one will believe you." I pulled out my phone, hit record, pointed it at him. "Say that again," I said. He froze just long enough. "I said," he snapped, "this patient is interfering with medical care." "And the double dose?" I asked loudly. "The undocumented sedative, the 4 other patients." His jaw tightened. Security hesitated. Nurses peeked from doorways. Too many witnesses. I pressed harder. "You're experimenting," I said. "You're falsifying charts, and you're about to kill my daughter." Emily squeezed my hand weakly. "Dad, what's happening?" Dr. Hale's composure cracked. "Turn that off," he hissed. "No," I said. "Explain it." For a moment he looked like he might lunge, then sirens echoed in the distance. Real ones. Frank had pulled the fire alarm. Sprinklers burst to life. Chaos exploded. Dr. Hale backed away. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Police flooded the wing, shouting, orders, guns visible. A detective approached. "What's going on?" he demanded. I shoved the phone into his hands. "Watch," I said. He did. His face changed. Dr. Hale was escorted away, still calm, still composed, but no longer in control. Emily was rushed back to ICU, this time with police outside the door. I collapsed into a chair, shaking. Hours passed. Dawn crept through the windows. A nurse approached. "She's stable," she said softly. "She's going to be okay." I broke, not quietly. I cried like a man who almost lost everything. Later that morning, the detective returned. "Dr. Hale is in custody," he said. Internal investigation opened. "And the hospital?" I asked. He hesitated. "They knew more than they admitted. Figures. Emily woke fully that afternoon. She remembered pieces, the fear, the confusion, but she was alive, and that was enough. Frank was gone, badge returned, job uncertain, but he nodded at me once from down the hall, a quiet hero. As for Dr. Hale, I saw him once more, being led away, no smile, no mask, just a man finally exposed. And as he passed me, he whispered one last thing. "You ruined years of work." I leaned close. "You ruined your soul." The hospital felt different once the sirens stopped. Quieter, heavier, like the building itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Emily slept for most of the morning. Real sleep this time, not the drugged stillness that terrified me before, but deep, natural rest. Her chest rose and fell steadily. The monitor beeped in a rhythm that finally sounded like life again. I sat beside her bed with my hands folded together, afraid that if I moved, something might shatter. A detective came in just after noon. Plain clothes, tired eyes, a folder tucked under his arm. "Mr. Cross," he said quietly, "I need to ask you a few questions." I nodded. We stepped into the hallway. He told me what I already suspected, but hearing it out loud made my stomach twist. Dr. Hale wasn't the only one. He'd been running unauthorized trials, targeting patients who wouldn't ask questions, patients with short hospital stays. Patients whose complications could be blamed on bad luck, and the hospital, they looked the other way. Funding, prestige, research grants, human lives became numbers. 4 families had already lost someone. Emily would have been the 5th. If you hadn't intervened when you did, the detective said, she wouldn't have survived the night. My knees weakened. I leaned against the wall, pressing my fist into my mouth to keep from making a sound. "Is he going to prison?" I asked. "Yes," the detective said firmly, "and so are some administrators. This is bigger than one doctor." He paused. "You did the right thing," he added. "I didn't feel heroic. I felt lucky. Lucky that a tired janitor with a broken back and a conscience decided to speak up." Frank didn't come back that night or the next. I asked around discreetly. No one knew where he'd been reassigned or if he still had a job. Hospitals protect themselves first, truth second. But on the 3rd day, a nurse slipped me an envelope. No name. Inside was a small note. "She'll be okay, that's what matters." I folded it carefully and tucked it into my wallet. Some people don't need recognition. They just need to know they did the right thing. Emily woke fully the next morning, her eyes focused on me for a long moment. "Dad," she said softly, "why do you look like you haven't slept in a year?" I laughed. It came out shaky. "Because I haven't," I said. She frowned. "Something happened," she said. "I remember voices, fear." I took her hand, and I told her the truth, not all of it at once, not the graphic parts, but enough. Her eyes filled with tears. "They were going to hurt me," she whispered. "Yes," I said honestly, "but they didn't." She squeezed my hand. "You didn't leave," she said. "You fought." I swallowed hard. "That's what fathers do," I said. She smiled weakly. "That janitor," she said suddenly, "the one who kept checking my room, he saved me, didn't he?" I nodded. She closed her eyes. "I hope he knows," she murmured. The news broke 2 days later, not loudly. Hospitals don't like headlines, but the story leaked. An investigative piece, whistleblowers, suspended staff. The comments were brutal. People were angry, and they should have been. Families came forward. Stories poured out, complications, dismissed concerns, doctors who wouldn't answer questions, a system built to silence fear. Emily watched the coverage from her bed. "I trusted them," she said quietly. "So did I replied. She looked at me. "Never again," she said firmly. I nodded. On the 5th day, Dr. Hale was transferred out of the hospital in handcuffs. I didn't go to see him. I didn't need closure from him. But as fate would have it, we crossed paths anyway. In the hallway, he was flanked by officers. No coat, no confidence, just a man stripped of authority. He recognized me instantly. His eyes narrowed. "You think you won," he said quietly. "I think my daughter lived," I replied. "That's enough." He smirked. "You stopped progress," he said. "Medicine requires sacrifice." I stepped closer. "No," I said, "it requires consent." He looked away. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. Emily was discharged a week later, walking slowly, laughing carefully, alive. As we left the hospital, she stopped near the automatic doors. "Dad," she said, "promise me something. Anything. If something ever feels wrong," she said, "don't ignore it, even if everyone else says it's fine." I nodded. "I promise," I said, but the truth was I'd already learned that lesson, the hard way. Months later, the hospital settled lawsuits quietly. New oversight boards, new procedures, new promises. Frank never contacted me again. But sometimes, when I mop my kitchen floor, I think of him, of the way he leaned in and risked everything to save someone he didn't know. And I realize something important. Evil rarely announces itself loudly. It hides behind credentials, behind calm voices, behind systems designed to make you stop asking questions. But courage often whispers. That night in a hospital room, it whispered to me. And because I listened, my daughter is alive. So if there's one thing I carry forward now, one truth I tell everyone who will listen, it's this. When someone with nothing to gain warns you, quietly listen. Because sometimes the person saving your life is the one everyone else overlooks. And sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is trust blindly.